My impression of myself was that I just wasn't really worth anything.
Dawn Searock lived in a nightmare, one that would lead her to attempt suicide at just 8 years old.
My daily life consisted of being abused, a lot of sexual abuse, being told and shown I wasn't wanted, I wasn't loved, I was a mistake. And I really came to believe those things about myself.
Dawn was 11 when she decided to go to the police station in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, and report the abuse. She was placed in a foster home until she was 18.
I really just yearned for a family, and if I could get someone to love me enough to marry me, that I would really hold some value.
So she married and had 2 children. The marriage didn't go the way she planned.
There was adultery, there was abuse, there was a lot of things that were going on that created a lot of distrust.
After 13 years, they divorced, and her husband took the children. Now 32 and alone, Dawn began drinking heavily to cope with her mounting anxiety and depression.
I always had the belief that I wasn't worthy, that I wasn't loved, and I had no value. I did everything to avoid facing that, and I really blamed God.
Meanwhile, Dawn started dating a man who convinced her to try something that would take away all her pain: heroin.
I was scared, but I also really wanted my suffering to stop. I just felt covered in this warm sensation of acceptance, love, peace. Everything was quiet. I wasn't scared anymore. Once I met heroin, that was it for me.
For the next 6 years, heroin was her escape.
It was a deep, deep pain to not be with my children, and being an addiction took that pain away. And I did anything to cover that up. And that's what dragged me through the streets and doing the most heinous things for this drug.
Desperate to stay high, Dawn stole a gun, traded it to her dealer for drugs, and was arrested. Released on her own recognizance before her trial, Dawn fled with her boyfriend to California. There, her addiction got even worse.
I got pregnant in my addiction, so now I had even more shame. I didn't like anything about myself. I was really, really just empty.
Dawn went to a substance abuse clinic where she was prescribed methadone in an effort to get clean for the baby.
But when I had my son, he was addicted to methadone. It was very difficult to witness that.
A few months later, acting on a tip, police arrested Dawn and had her extradited back to Rhode Island. Now serving 18 months, Dawn ran into a woman from her past who had recently become a Christian.
She started to change right before my eyes, and I was really curious to start reading the scriptures. I didn't have an understanding of them, but it did provide a comfort, accepting that this is the truth and allowing it to minister to my heart.
After her release in 2012, Dawn was homeless and living in a shelter.
It just hit me that there had to be something more than this. I could not have been created for this. And that's when I prayed for the first time ever in my life. And I told him that I would do anything if he would just show me the way.
The next morning, a stranger invited Dawn to a Christian rehabilitation home for addicts.
Realizing that I wasn't invisible to God, that was everything.
Once there, Dawn heard more about God's love for her. Even then, she found it hard to believe. Then one morning, while studying the Bible with one of the counselors, something clicked.
I came across Romans 8:38 and 39, and it says, nothing can separate us from the love of God. And when I read that, I got so excited. No matter what I had done, God would still love me. It seemed too easy. And I wrestled with it, and she grabbed me, telling me that none of us are good enough. None of us deserve what God has done. And it is only because of Jesus that we get to have that free gift that removed so much weight for me and accepting that truth.
Since then, Dawn married Jason, a police officer. Together, they started a nonprofit, Socks and Souls, to help others in need. Dawn has also reconciled with her children. She loves to share the hope she's found in Jesus with others.
He sees you. He understands your pain. He doesn't intend for us to have a life of suffering, and he intends for us to truly have an abundant life in him. There is forgiveness. There is unconditional love. That love is everything to me.